Okay, Bismillah, we're live.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على محمد رسول الله سيد الأولين والآخرين وإمام الأنبياء والمرسلين والشافع المشفع يوم الدين وعلى آله الطيبين وأزواجه الطاهرات أمهات المؤمنين وصحابته الغر الميامين ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، حياكم الله أيها الإخوة والأخوات إلى هذا اللقاء الخاص جدا بمناسبة الإقبال على عرفة. فنحن الليلة ليلة 9 من ذي الحجة، ليلة عرفة، ويوم غد يوم عظيم عند الله في السماء وعند أهل الإيمان في الأرض، إنه خير يوم طلعت عليه الشمس. نعم.
Indeed, all praises are due to Allah, and may the most complete blessings and salutations be showered upon his Prophet, Muhammad, the leader of the first and the last, the Imam of the Prophets, and the best and most complete of the messengers. And may he also send and shower blessings and salutations upon his companions and his pure wives, and those who follow him to the day of resurrection. To proceed, I welcome you all to this meeting of ours, which is a special edition. It's a special meeting that relates to us coming to one of the best days of the year, which is the day of Arafah, the 9th day of the Islamic month, Dhul Hijjah. And tomorrow is a great day in the sight and in the reckoning of Allah, who is above the heavens, and it's also a great day for the believers who are on the face of the earth.
هذه المناسبة العظيمة تسترجع ذاكرتنا في التاريخ للوراء قليلا. نعم.
So this day, it makes us think about what has happened recently, this day and this event.
فإن هذه الشعيرة شعيرة الحج، وإن كان اليوم كثير من الناس لا يعرفونها ولا يعرفون معناها ولا أثرها في النفوس، إلا أنها إنما شرعت من أول البشرية، بل قبل البشرية. فالملائكة هم من بنوا المسجد، من بنوا الكعبة، ثم هدمها السيل، ثم أرى الله عز وجل إبراهيم الخليل أبو الأنبياء مكان البيت، فبناه هو وابنه إسماعيل عليهم السلام.
And the rite or the ritual of the Hajj pilgrimage today, it's something that many people are unaware of. They are unaware of the pilgrimage, and they are unaware of the impact that it has upon the souls. They are also unaware of the fact that it was legislated from the first of the sons of Adam, the first people. The Hajj was legislated. Rather, it was even legislated and done, and something that was a ritual performed by the angels, where the angels themselves, they built the house, the Kaaba, and then it was destroyed by waters. It was destroyed by waters, and then Abraham and his son Ishmael, they rebuilt the house upon the earth.
ثم أمر الله عز وجل أبا الأنبياء الخليل إبراهيم عليه السلام بعد اكتمال البيت أن ينادي في الناس للحج، أن يأتوا إلى الحج.
And then Allah the Most High, he ordered the father of the prophets, meaning Abraham, may Allah's peace and salutations be upon him. Allah the Most High ordered him, after he had completed the construction of the house, the Kaaba, he ordered him to call the people to worship Allah therein.
وأيضا قال له أن الناس سيأتون من كل طريق بأعداد كبيرة جدا، يأتون ماشيين ويأتون راكبين، كلهم يريد فضل الله وثوابه. نعم.
And he also, meaning Allah the Most High, he informed Abraham that the people would come and they would attend this house, and the people would come from many, many different places from around the world, and they would come walking, and they would come riding, they would come however they could possibly come, and they would all come and arrive at the house seeking the reward of Allah the Most High.
وبالفعل كان، فقد جاء موسى عليه السلام كما أخبر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه أتى على ثور أحمر خطامه الليف، وكان يجأر يرفع صوته بالتلبية.
And this is something that actually happened. As Allah the Most High, he mentioned to Abraham that that the people all came. And from those people was the Prophet of Allah, Moses, may Allah's peace be upon him. And he came upon a red bull. And when he came, he was saying the remembrance that is said when those individuals go to make the pilgrimage. He was saying it, and he was saying it aloud.
وأيضا أخبر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يونس بن متى نبي الله أتى حاجا البيت رافعا صوته بالتلبية، والتلبية شعار التوحيد.
And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he also informed us that Yunus bin Matta, may Allah's peace and salutations be upon him, the Prophet of Allah, he also visited the house of Allah, the Kaaba, and he was also saying this remembrance that is said, which is known in Arabic as the Talbiyah. This is the remembrance that is said during the time of pilgrimage, and it's also been called as the word of monotheism, i.e. the word of Tawheed.
والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبرنا أن مسجد الخيف بمنى قد صلى فيه 70,000 نبي.
And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he also told us that the Masjid Al-Khir, this is the name of Al-Khif, that the Masjid Al-Khif, this is the name of the masjid, was a place in which 70,000, 70,000 of the prophets prayed therein.
وهذا يعني أن هذا الحج ليس خاصا في مر الزمان، لم يكن خاصا بمحمد وأمته فقط، بل كل الأمم الماضية كانت مأمورة أن تأتي البيت العتيق وتحجه.
And this all gives us the indication, and it tells us that this rite and this ritual of the pilgrimage of Hajj is not something that was specific to Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and his nation. Rather, it was something that was prescribed and done as an act of worship by the previous nations that came before.
وفي هذا الموسم العظيم يجتمع الناس من كل بلاد الدنيا فيتعارفون بينهم ويتبادلون المنافع العلمية والمنافع الاقتصادية، ويحصل بينهم من وشائج الألفة ما لا يمكن أن يتأتى لهم في غير مثل هذا المحفل العظيم.
And during this time, this seasonal time, people from all across the world, they come together and they benefit one another through their knowledge, through their trade, through their economics. They benefit one another and they come to know of each other. And it's a coming together of peoples of different cultures and different walks of life.
وهذا المحفل الذي يكون ذروته يوم غد يوم عرفة، كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الحج عرفة. فإن هذا اليوم يوم عظيم، عظيم قدره عند الله، وعظيم أثره ومكانته عند عباد الله المؤمنين.
And this day, or this ritual and this rite, the rite of the Hajj, its pinnacle is that which takes place tomorrow, the day of Arafah. As the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said in a narration, that the Hajj is Arafah, or it's equal to Arafah. So it is a day that is great with Allah, the Most High, and it's also a day that is revered and held in high esteem by his righteous slaves.
يقول الله عز وجل عشية عرفة، أي من بعد الظهر إلى المغرب، حين يتوجه الناس تلقاء الكعبة رافع أيديهم ذاكرين وداعين، يقول الله عز وجل لنبيه لملائكته في السماء: انظروا إلى عبادي هؤلاء جاءوني شعثا غبرا، يعني جاءوا شعثا لم يمتشطوا، غبرا لم يغتسلوا، أشهدكم أني غفرت لهم.
And Allah on the day of Arafah, and from the time of the forenoon prayer till the time of Maghrib, this is a linguistic reference that this is the period in which Allah the Most High says this. He says to his angels, look to my slaves, for indeed they have come. شيخنا كيف انظر إلى عبادي أنهم أتوا
جاءوني شعثا، يعني غبور شعورهم غير مرجلة.
So they have come to me so in a way that they are unkempt. So their hair is unkempt, and they have come to me in a state in which they are dusty, i.e. they have gone through all these hardships, and bear witness that indeed I have forgiven their shortcomings and I have forgiven their sins.
أولئك القوم في صعيد عرفات تركوا وراءهم قصورهم وبيوتهم العامرة بالأثاث الوفير وملابسهم الزاهية، وتجردوا من كل ذلك، وأتوا إلى الله جل وعلا في ذلك المكان كما أمرهم، طائعين متذللين راجين أن يغفر لهم الله عز وجل ما تقدم من ذنوبهم ويصلح لهم ما يستقبلون من أعمارهم.
So those people who are there on the day of Arafah, they are a people who have left the comforts of their dwellings. They have left their castles. They have left their houses. They have left their beautifully adorned clothes, and they have left their clean clothes, all for the sake of Allah. And they do this in a submissive way, hoping that Allah the Most High will forgive them that which has proceeded from them from their sins, and with the hope that Allah the Most High will rectify them and make them better in the future.
وهؤلاء القوم يستوون في ذلك المشهد العظيم: الأمير والغفير أي الجندي، الغني والفقير، الكبير والصغير، كلهم يومئذ سواء في منظرهم وفي موقفهم وفي سؤلهم، كلهم سواء، لا فرق بين أحد منهم من الآخر، كلهم تجردوا عن الثياب إلا عن إزار ورداء، كلهم لم يلبس ما كان يعتاده من ملابس الفخامة، كلهم ترك التطيب، كلهم ليس شيء على لسانه إلا ذكر الله وإلا سؤاله المغفرة.
And on that day, when they're on that plane, all of the people are equal and there is no difference between any of them. So you will see no difference between the commander or the general of the army and the common soldier. There is no difference between the rich and the poor. You cannot see any differentiation in status or rank between the young and the old, because they all look the same and they're all standing in the same space and the same place, and they're all asking for the same thing. So there is no difference between them. They have all left their clothes, so they are all wearing the same clothes, which is a simple garment that shows that no one has any superiority over the others, and they're all doing this, asking Allah the Most High for His forgiveness.
ويوم عرفة كما تقدم هو أعظم أيام الله، ومع ذلك العمل فيه هو أيسر أعمال التقرب إلى الله، الكل يستطيعها، العربي والأعجمي، العالم والجاهل، الفارغ والمنشغل، كلهم يستطيع العمل في ذلك اليوم الذي يقف بعرفات، والذي ليس هو حاج بل هو في أهله ووطنه، كلهم يستطيع أن يقوم بعمل هو مشترك بينهم.
And this day is the greatest of the days in the sight of Allah, and the best of actions on that day are the easiest of actions, the actions that the Arabs and the non-Arabs equally they can partake in. It's an action that the scholar and the ignorant they can equally partake in. Those who are busy and those who are free, they can equally partake in this action. And it's not something that's specific to those who are on the pilgrimage and those who are not.
هذا العمل الذي يشترك فيه الجميع قد أخبر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه خير الأعمال على الإطلاق. قال في حديث أبي الدرداء رضي الله تعالى عنه، قال للصحابة رضوان الله عليهم: ألا أنبئكم بخير أعمالكم؟ هذا الحديث تكتب جملة أو تترجم جملة؟
كما ترون شيخنا.
أنا أرى أنك تترجم جملة أحسن حتى لا يغيب شيء.
حسنا.
قال: ألا أنبئكم بخير أعمالكم؟
So this action has been explained by the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where he told the companions, and it was a narration that was reported by Abu Darda, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Shall I not tell you or inform you of the best of the actions that you can put forward?"
وأزكاها عند مليككم، يعني أنفسها وأحسنها عند الله.
And the most precious of them in the sight or in the reckoning of your Lord.
وأرفعها في درجاتكم.
And the loftiest of the actions in terms of your ranks or in terms of their ranks.
وخير لكم من إنفاق الذهب والفضة.
And an action that is better for you than spending in gold and silver.
وخير لكم من أن تلقوا عدوكم فتضربوا أعناقهم ويضربوا أعناقكم.
And it's an action that's better for you than if you were to meet your enemies and they were to attack you and strike you at the neck and you were to strike them at their neck.
وقال قالوا بلى يا رسول الله.
And they responded, because this was a question to the companions, "Of course, O Messenger of Allah."
قال ذكر الله.
And he said, peace and blessings be upon him, the remembrance of Allah.
ذكر الله الذي هو أسهل الأعمال يستطيع كل أحد
And this is the remembrance of Allah, which is the easiest of actions that all can do and all can partake in.
وهو لا يشغل عن شغل الإنسان مستغرق فيه. فالجراح إذا ذكر الله لن ينشغل عن عمله بالجراحة، والطيار إذا ذكر الله لن ينشغل عن قيادة الطائرة، وهكذا، بل يزداد ثباتا، لأن الله يقول: ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب.
So the individual, were they to partake in making remembrance of Allah, it's something that does not deviate their attention away from that which they are doing or partaking in. So the individual who is working, they may be able to make this remembrance of Allah and continue their work. The pilot who is even piloting a plane, they can pilot and navigate the plane while at the same time making remembrance of Allah. And this remembrance, it does not detract, it does not take their attention away, and it does not negate that which they are doing. Rather, it makes it better and it improves it. Why is this? This is because when they make this remembrance, their hearts find peace and their hearts are at rest. As Allah the Most High says, indeed, within the remembrance of Allah, the hearts find peace and tranquility.
وهذا الذكر ترطيب للأفواه، كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم للرجل: قال لا يزال لسانك رطبا من ذكر الله.
And this remembrance is something that should be carried out upon the tongue. As the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to the man, let your tongue be moist with the remembrance of Allah.
وهذا الذكر يوجب للعبد معية الله، لأن الله عز وجل يقول: أنا مع عبدي حين يذكرني، فإن ذكرني في نفسي ذكرته في نفسي، وإن ذكرني في ملأ ذكرته في ملأ خير منهم.
And this remembrance of Allah, it causes the individual, or it causes Allah to be with the individual in terms of success. As Allah the Most High mentions, شيخنا هذا حديث قدسي.
نعم.
As Allah, بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. As Allah the Most High mentions in a narration where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, mentions that Allah says, indeed, I am with my slave when he remembers me. And if he remembers me in a gathering, if he remembers me in his self or herself, I will remember them in myself. And if they remember me in a gathering, I will remember them in a gathering that is better than it.
وهذا الذكر يكفل للعبد الأجر العظيم، كما قال الله عز وجل: والذاكرين الله كثيرا والذاكرات أعد الله لهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما.
And
أجرا كبيرا.
حفظكم الله شيخنا. And upon this remembrance of Allah and remembering Allah, there lies great reward with Allah the Most High. As Allah the Most High mentions in the Quran, those males and those females who make remembrance of Allah, He will write for them forgiveness and a great reward.
وذكر الله أيضا تركه دلالة الخسارة، كما قال الله عز وجل: لا تلهكم أموالكم، قال يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون.
And being negligent and not paying attention to the remembrance of Allah is a cause for loss. As Allah the Most High says in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم, O you who have believed, do not make your wealth and your children, do not allow them to deviate you from the remembrance of Allah. And whosoever does this, then those are indeed the losers.
وأهل الموقف لهم في هذا اليوم يوم عرفات عملين اثنين أو عملان اثنان.
And the people who are standing on the plain of Arafat on that day, they have two principal actions or two principal things that they should do.
الوقوف في عرفات، ومعنى الوقوف أي إمضاء الوقت من حين الوصول إلى عرفات إلى غروب الشمس في ذلك المكان لا يبرحونه. ليس المقصود وقوفا على أقدامهم، لكن المقصود أن يكونوا في ذلك الموطن.
شيخنا والمقصود إلى غروب الشمس.
إلى غروب الشمس. نعم.
So the first of these actions is that they must be present, or they must be standing. Literally in Arabic, to be present, it's synonymous to be standing. They should be present at the plain of Arafah, and this is from the time of their arrival until the sun sets. And it's not necessary that they are actually standing in that time, rather just that they are present.
والعمل الثاني هو استغراق الوقت من بعد الظهر إلى غروب الشمس في الذكر والدعاء. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: أفضل الدعاء دعاء يوم عرفة، وخير ما قلت أنا والنبيون قبلي عشية عرفة: لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد، يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير.
And the second action that they should do is from the time after Dhuhr until the sun sets, they should busy themselves solely with the remembrance of Allah and the making of supplication to Allah. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he mentioned that indeed the best supplication is the supplication of Arafah, and the best of that which I have said, and the Prophets who came before me, the best supplication that they have said is La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. There is no deity worthy of worship in truth except for Allah alone, having no partners. Lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu. He has the dominion and all praises are due to him. Lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu. Yuhyi wa yumitu. He is the one who gives life and causes death. Wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. And he is able to do all things.
فيشغلون وقتهم بالدعاء أي دعاء، وأفضل الدعاء ما ورد في القرآن والسنة، وأفضله مطلقا قول ربنا عز وجل: ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.
So they should busy themselves with making supplication to Allah. And the best of these supplications are those that are found in the book of Allah and in the example of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And the best of these supplications is the statement, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. O Allah, give us all that is good in the worldly life. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. And all that is good in the hereafter. وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. And free us or save us from the punishment of the fire.
ويقابل عمل الحجاج عمل غيرهم.
And the actions of those pilgrims, those who are not pilgrims, they should reflect the actions of the pilgrims.
وعمل غير الحجاج أيضا ينقسم إلى قسمين.
And as the actions of the pilgrims were of two types, the actions of the non-pilgrims are also of two types. And this is so the Sheikh first looked at the actions of the pilgrims, and now on the opposite side, the non-pilgrims, they have two actions.
فالحجاج عندهم وقوف بصعيد عرفات يقابله صيام عند غير الحجيج إلى غروب شمس يوم عرفات.
So where we said that those who are pilgrims, it's legislated for them to stand or be present at the plain of Arafah until the sun sets, then this is reflected, or this is reflected in the actions of the non-pilgrims, where they fast the day of Arafah until the sun sets.
ويقابل ذكر أهل عرفات دعاء أهل عرفات مثيله دعاء لغير أهل عرفات طيلة ساعات النهار من يوم عرفة.
And as for the remembrance and the supplication of Allah that the pilgrims make, then this is reflected like for like. So the non-pilgrims, it is legislated for them to make remembrance of Allah and to supplicate to Him the whole day during the day of Arafah.
ويزيد غير أهل الموقف في الذكر أذكارا مخصصة.
However, those who are not pilgrims on that day and who are not present on the day of Arafah, there is an additional supplication that they can say.
أما الأول فهو التكبير المقيد أي دبر الصلوات المكتوبة ويبدأ غير الحاج فيه من بعد صلاة الفجر من يوم عرفة.
So the first of these is the takbir. It's the type of remembrance that we looked at last week in our lesson, and it's the takbir that is said, that is restricted or that is fixed behind the obligatory prayers. So behind all the obligatory prayers, and this commences after the Fajr prayer on the day of Arafah for those who are not pilgrims. So for those who are not there performing the Hajj ritual.
وأيضا مما يختص به أو مما يكون في يوم عرفة لغير الحاج ذكر أرشد إليه، وأيضا للحجاج أرشد إليه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حين قال ما من أيام العمل الصالح فيهن أحب إلى الله من هذه العشر فأكثروا فيهن من التكبير والتحميد والتهليل. فهذا قول الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد يكون في سائر أيام العشر التي من ضمنها يوم عرفة، فيكثر منه الإنسان إلى جانب التكبير المقيد الذي يكون دبر الصلوات المكتوبة.
And the second of these actions is that which the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he guided his nation to carry out, where he said that indeed there are no days that are more beloved or better to Allah than the days of the Hijjah, or than the day of Arafah. So
العشر.
Rather, there are no better days in the sight of Allah than the 10 of the Hijjah. So during these 10, say the takbir, which is the statement, say Allahu Akbar, say Alhamdulillah, say La ilaha illallah, say all of these things many times. And this is manifest in the remembrance that we looked at last week, where it's highly recommended for us to say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. La ilaha illallah, there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except for Allah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. Walillahi alhamd, and all praises are due to Allah. So this is a remembrance that's said in an unrestricted sense. So this is not tied or confined to being after one of the prescribed prayers. Rather, at any time, the individual can and should say this remembrance, and it should be alongside and in addition to saying or making this remembrance after the prescribed prayers.
وأيضا مما ينبغي أن يعلمه المسلم أن أفضل ساعات يوم عرفة ما كان في آخرها، أي من بعد العصر إلى المغرب، فينبغي الإنسان يتفرغ للذكر والدعاء، يترك جميع ما في يده حتى من سائر الأعمال التعبدية الأخرى، يتفرغ فقط للذكر والدعاء.
And also that which should be known and noted is that the best hours and the best times during the day of Arafah are the last or the closing hours of its day. And that is after the Asr prayer until the Maghrib prayer. So the individual, they should free themselves up, even if it is from other forms of worship. They should free themselves up and they should dedicate this time for making remembrance of Allah and supplicating to Him.
ثم إذا انتهى يوم عرفة، ونسأل الله عز وجل أن يبلغنا وإياكم إياه ويجعلنا وإياكم فيه من المحسنين، إذا انتهى يوم عرفة استقبلنا يوما عظيما آخر وهو يوم النحر.
And once the day of Arafah finishes, and we ask Allah the Most High to enable us to meet the day of Arafah and to give us success, to be from those who do well and do good on it, after the day has passed, then we accept and we take on a great day, which is the day of the sacrifice.
وهذا اليوم يوم النحر الذي هو يوم العيد سماه الله عز وجل في القرآن يوم الحج الأكبر.
And this day is known as the day of sacrifice. Also, it's the day of the festival of Eid. And it is the day that Allah the Most High, He names in the Quran as the day of, or the day of the greater Hajj, Yawm al-Hajj al-Akbar.
والسبب في تسميته بيوم الحج الأكبر لاجتماع أمهات عبادات الحج فيه كرمي جمرة العقبة والذبح والحلق والطواف والسعي.
And the reason it is called the day of the greater day of Hajj is due to the fact that the greatest rituals of Hajj all take part within this day. So the ritual of the throwing the stones of the pillar of Aqaba, the slaughtering, the tawaf, the sa'i. شيخنا لقد فاتني أحد الأركان. الحلق أي حفظكم الله. And also to shave one's hair. These are all rites of Hajj, great rites that are carried out within this day. بارك الله فيكم شيخ.
وغير الحجيج أيضا هو يوم عظيم لهم، فإنهم يشهدون فيه صلاة العيد وينحرون أضاحيهم.
And for those who are not present and who are not pilgrims on that day, it is also a great day for them because they will pray on that day the Eid prayer and they will also perform their sacrifice of their animal.
ثم يأتي عقب ذلك اليوم 3 أيام هي أيضا من أيام العيد، كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: أيام منى أيام أكل وشرب وذكر لله، يعني بها أيام التشريق، وهي اليوم 11 و12 و13، لا يحل صيامها وينبغي الإكثار فيها من ذكر الله كالتكبير المقيد دبر الصلوات والتكبير المطلق في كل الأوقات وسائر الذكر، وأيضا مما ينبغي أن يكون فيها هو إظهار الفرح بنعمة الله والسرور على توفيقه.
And so those who are not performing the Hajj on the day of Eid, they will pray the Eid prayer, and also they will sacrifice their animals on that day. And then following this day of Eid, there follow 3 days, which are also considered to be from the days of Eid. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he called them the days of Mina, and this is a place, the days of Mina. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that these are days of eating and drinking and making remembrance of Allah the Most High. And they are the 11th, 12th, and 13th, respectively, of the month of Dhul Hijjah. And due to the fact that they are considered a part of Eid, it is not permissible for an individual to fast on these days. Rather, they make remembrance of Allah during these days by making the takbir, the remembrance that we've mentioned, that is restricted behind, i.e. it's said after the prescribed prayers, and they also make this takbir outside of these times as they wish. And they should also perform other acts of dhikr, of making remembrance of Allah, and they should be openly happy and display their happiness to Allah the Most High for having given them the success to have performed these acts of obedience to Him.
ومن استثمر هذه الأوقات المباركة واستغرقها في طاعة الله ذكرا وصياما يعني تكبيرا وتحميدا وتهليلا وشهودا لصلاة العيد وذبحا للأضحية لله عز وجل، مخلصا لله بذلك، مقبلا على الله بقلبه، متبعا هدي رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم، راجيا ثواب الله، حذرا من عقابه، محال لمثله أن ينتكس عقب الحج إلى ما يغضب الله عز وجل، بل إن الله عز وجل قد ضمن له الزيادة في ذلك، فقال والذين اهتدوا زادهم هدى. فينبغي الإنسان أن يستحضر الإخلاص لله عز وجل في هذه الأيام وهذه الأعمال، وأن يتحرى موافقة السنة ولا يقلد الناس ويقول لو لم يكن طيبا لما فعلوه، بل يسأل عن دينه. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم ألا سألوا حين جهلوا فإنما شفاء العي السؤال.
So we should make this remembrance of Allah the Most High, seeking Him and seeking His reward, and we should do so seeking His reward and also being wary and hoping of deliverance and aid from His punishment. And we should perform these acts of worship of Allah the Most High, from making the takbir, making this remembrance, and also praying the day of Eid, and also making the sacrifice. We should do these things sincerely for the sake of Allah, seeking His reward and only His reward. And Allah the Most High says, and those who seek guidance or seek to be rightly guided, we increase them in guidance. So it's incumbent and necessary that through these rituals and through these rites that we purify our intentions for Allah the Most High, and we follow and we do everything that we can and expend our efforts in following the Sunnah, the example of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and we ask about the rites and the rituals that we carry out, so that we don't just follow people blindly. However, we know about what the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, guided us to. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, mentioned, he was talking about a people, and he said, were they only to ask? Were they only to ask? For indeed, the cure of ignorance is to ask the question, or is to ask and seek guidance.
ولعلي أختم هنا ببعض التوجيهات نطرقها سريعا. فهذه الليلة ليس لها خصوصية. أعني ليلتنا هذه ليلة 9 من ذي الحجة، ليلة عرفة، فإن بعض الناس يظن أن قيام ليلها عمل إذا خص يعني دون الليالي عمل محبب إلى الله، وهذا غير صحيح، فإنه لم يرد في تخصيص ليلة عرفة أي نص صحيح صريح، وإنما من كان يقوم الليلة في سائر لياليه فلا يترك قيام الليل هذه الليلة، بل يقوم الليل كما كان يقوم سائر الليالي.
And we'll finish this lecture, tonight's lecture, by giving some words of advice and some words of guidance, specifically about this night that we're in, i.e. the 9th night of the Hijjah. There is nothing that has been specifically reported about its virtue, such that there are specific acts of worship that should be conducted and carried out during this night. And some of the people, they may think that this is a blessed night, so it's a night that should be specified with acts of worship. However, there is nothing that has been reported on the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that is either authentic nor that is explicit and clear to show and demonstrate that there is any additional virtue to this night. However, the individual who is used to, as part of their routine, who is used to standing the night in prayer, then they should do so, they should continue to do so if it is part of their wider habit.
ويوم غد يوم عرفة المنبغي على المسلم أن يستريح أول النهار ثم يتفرغ للعبادة آخر النهار، وأن يصوم يوم غد إن كان مستطيعا، لكن يحذر أن لا يفسد هذا الصوم بمعاصي يعني الأمور المحرمة نظرا أو سماعا أو تحدثا كالغيبة والنميمة والشتام والسباب، وكذلك أكل الحرام، فإن الإنسان يحذر من ذلك كله وهو صائم، فإن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: من لم يدع قول الزور والعمل به فليس لله حاجة بأن يدع طعامه وشرابه.
And then the individual, tomorrow is a day where the individual, they should start the day off taking it easy, and then as the day progressively grows, they should get more and more intense or busy with their acts of worship. And also they should fast on this day, and when they fast, they should take care of their fast such that they do not blemish it with acts of disobedience to Allah the Most High, from looking at those things that are impermissible, or speaking in a way and a manner that's impermissible, either by backbiting or slandering or cursing others, etc. And also they should keep away from all types of sins, from spending people's money or taking people's money without right, and other types of sins, due to the statement of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where he said, whosoever does not leave off foul speech and acting in accordance to it, then Allah has no need for that individual to leave off their food and their drink, i.e. that there is no need for them to fast.
وانتهاء يوم عرفة لا يعني انتهاء أزمنة الطاعة واستقبال ما يأتي من أيام بالمعاصي والفتور، فإن هذا من دلائل الخسران، بل الواجب على من وفقه الله عز وجل للطاعة في يوم عرفة أن يستقبل العيد بأحسن حال من الطاعة، وأن يواظب على الأعمال الصالحة.
And then when the individual finishes, or the day of Arafah finishes, the individual should not necessarily finish in their taking care, in their diligence over obedience to Allah the Most High. When the day of Arafah finishes, it does not mean that the individual's worship finishes and that the days that proceed, that follow, I beg your pardon, the days that follow are days of disobedience where you can carry out or do whatever you like. Rather, we should behave on the day of Eid in the best of character, and we should perform and be at our best on the following days.
وينبغي للقادر على تقديم الأضحية أن يقدمها، يضحي بها في بلده الذي يقيم فيه إن أمكن، ويطعم منها هو وأهله، ويطعم هدية جيرانه ولو كانوا من غير المسلمين، ويهدي لفقير، فإن لم يوجد فقراء في حيه فله أن يأكل منها ويطعم يعني غيره هدية كالجيران والأقرباء والأصدقاء، ولا يترك الأضحية. فإن لم يقدر على ثمنها في بلده أو لم يجدها في بلده فإنه يعني يرسل بما يقدر أن يشتري به أضحية في بلد مسلم فقير، فتذبح له عنه نيابة هناك، ويطعم الفقراء هناك ويدخل السرور عليهم، خير من أن يتركها لعجزه عن ذبحها في بلده.
And whosoever has the means to perform the sacrifice, i.e. to sacrifice an animal in their land where they are resident, then they should do so. And with the meat, they should use this and have it for their families, for their neighbors, and for their neighbors, even if they are not Muslim. And they should also give a portion of this, or they can give a portion of this to the poor. But if they are not able to do this, but they can send money abroad to other countries where the sacrifice can be carried out, then they may do so. i.e. they can send the money that will be used to purchase an animal and the sacrifice carried out, and then the meat distributed to needy Muslims and needy people in other countries. Then this is something that should be done.
ويوم العيد لا يعني ويوم العيد يوم فرح وسرور، لكن هذا لا يعني انخلاع من الحشمة ومن الأدب الإسلامي ومن الطاعة، وانغماس في المحرمات والفجور والسفور والغناء، وإنما يعني فرح لا يتجاوز به العبد حدود الطاعة ولا يترك به العبادة.
And then the day of Eid is a day of being happy and a day of celebration. But this does not mean that one should not at the same time adhere to Islamic etiquettes and partake in that which is unlawful, and partake in low base acts from singing and dancing and other than this. Rather, we should be happy in a way that Islam shows us to be happy, in a way that Islam enables us to express our happiness while being obedient to Allah the Most High and not leaving off acts of obedience to Him.
وينبغي الحذر من الاختلاط بين الرجال والنساء غير المحارم، وينبغي للنساء الحذر من إظهار مفاتنهن للرجال الأجانب، وينبغي للمسلم أن يستثمر هذه الفرصة السعيدة في التواصل مع ذوي رحمه من قراباته من جهة أبيه وجهة أمه وغيرهم، ولو بالاتصال أو بإرسال الرسائل للتهنئة بالعيد والدعاء لهم بقبول العمل ونحو ذلك، حتى ترتاح النفوس وتنشرح الصدور وتألف الناس بعضها بعضا.
And also, we should be wary of men and women free mixing during this period, and of women showing their beauty to foreign men. Also, we should take the opportunity during this time to keep the ties of kinship and relationship between members of our family, and we should connect with them and stay in touch with them, even if it is with just a phone call or a message of some sort, and a message making dua for them, or giving them salutations for that day, because this is something that will make the family members happy, and it will bring about unity within the family.
ومن أهم وآخر ما أوصي به إظهار الإسلام ببهائه وحسنه وصورته الجميلة للناس، حتى يعرفوا حقيقة الإسلام التي زيفها أعداؤه وأظهروا أنه دين حرمان ودين قتل ودين عنف، وهو بالحقيقة دين تسامح ودين محبة ودين إحسان. فإن الناظر في كبار رجالات الإسلام يجد أنهم لم يدخلوا الدين بقوة ولا بعنف، وإنما بحسن التعامل مع الناس واللطف بهم. هذا هو الإسلام الذي يجب علينا أن نظهره، خصوصا في مثل هذه المحافل التي شرعها الله من أجل إظهار الإسلام الحق للناس، حتى يدخلوا فيه أفواجا بإذن الله. وهنا أختم وأسأل الله لي ولكم التوفيق للعمل الصالح والقبول عنده والغفران لجميع ذنوبنا وزلاتنا، وأن يطيل في أعمارنا على طاعته، وأن يستعملنا على الدوام في طاعته، وأن يؤهلنا لدخول جنته، وأن يجعلنا من أهله وخاصته، وأن يغفر لنا ذنوبا أثقلتنا في المسير إليه، ويتجاوز عن سيئات حجزتنا عن الورود عليه، وأن يعاملنا بما هو أهله ولا يعاملنا بما نحن أهله، فهو أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. وإلى الملتقى في الأسبوع المقبل نتناول ما كنا نتناوله من مواضيعنا السابقة. وأختم بالسلام عليكم، فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. حفظكم الله شيخنا وبارك فيكم. And from the most important things that we should do, and this is from my final words of advice, is that we should show and demonstrate to Islam during this time. We should show and demonstrate Islam in its true, beautiful sense, the sense that so many are trying to show that it is not, because they try and show the enemies of Islam, or those who wish to portray Islam in a distorted sense. They wish to portray it as the religion that takes away from people, or the religion that makes it difficult for people, and a religion of oppression and fighting and killing. However, the reality is that it's the opposite of all of these things. It is a religion of acceptance, and a religion of peace, and a religion of beauty. And when we look at history, the great characters of Islam, those great individuals who became Muslim, they never embraced al-Islam due to harshness or due to the difficulties that they found in Islam, rather due to the accepting qualities that Islam has to offer. So especially during these times when we are celebrating one of our festivals, this is the opportune time to show and demonstrate al-Islam in the best possible sense, that it can be demonstrated. And yes, and if we were to do this, then the people, they will see the truth of Islam, and they will enter into Islam in groups and in crowds. So with this I end, and I ask Allah the Most High to give us the righteous actions that He will accept. I ask Him to extend our lives such that we can continue worshipping Him, and to extend our lives in obedience to Him. I ask Him to deal with us I ask Him to deal with us in accordance to His grace and His mercy, not in accordance to our shortcomings and that which we give. I ask Him to enter us into the paradise and to forgive us our shortcomings. And this is our last word, and all praises are, and our last prayer is that all praises are due to Allah, Lord of all creation, and may He shower peace and salutations and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad and upon his family and companions to the day of resurrection. And by the will of Allah, next week we'll continue with the program that we set out a few weeks ago, where we will be studying Quran, and we'll be studying the biography of our noble Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. May Allah reward our Sheikh Muhammad al-Maliki for delivering such a splendid lecture and a timely lecture, and may he give us all the success and the ability to act upon the words of our noble Sheikh.
Jazakallah. Jazakallah. There's two quick questions which I have here. I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but if you can just briefly go over it. When is the last day to give Qurban? And Eid is Eid on Tuesday and for 3 days.
نعم شيخنا، فمتى آخر وقت للأضحية؟
آخر وقت الأضحية يبدأ وقتها من بعد صلاة العيد وينتهي بغروب شمس يوم 13 من ذي الحجة. يوم 13 لا أدري كم يكون بالتقويم، سأراه الآن بالتقويم الغربي. يوم 13 يكون يوم 23 من شهر يوليو هذا العام. هذا آخر يوم الذي هو يوم الجمعة قبل الغروب، قبل أن تغرب الشمس.
والشيخنا طبعا هذا للأضحية فعلا، والذي يرسل المال عليه المبادرة، أليس كذلك؟
نعم، هو يعني المقصد أن ذبح الأضحية والهدي وكذلك الهدي للحجاج هذا الوقت كله له من بعد صلاة بالنسبة للحجاج من وقت وصولهم إلى منى يوم العاشر يوم النحر، ولغير الحجاج من بعد صلاة العيد الذي هو يتوافق مع وصول الحجاج إلى منى، ويمتد كل النهار وكل الليل يوم العاشر ويوم 11 ويوم 12 كل النهار والليل، ويوم 13 فقط النهار إلى غروب الشمس. بعد الغروب لا يكون أضحية.
حفظكم الله شيخنا. So the time for the slaughtering to be accepted is after the Eid prayer, until the 13th, until the time of Maghrib on the 13th. And this is in conformity to our calendar, the time for Maghrib on the 23rd of July. So that would be so the Monday, the Tuesday, the 20th, that would be the day of the 10th, and the 21st would be the 11th, the 22nd, the 12th, and the 23rd, the 13th. So these are the 3 days. And the days for the Hujjaj, for the pilgrims, is from the time that they arrive at Mina until the 10th, 11th, then the 12th, all of those times, and then the 13th during the day up to the time of Salat al-Maghrib.
طبعا هذا الموافقة بين التقويم الهجري والميلادي ليس كل سنة، هذه السنة وافقت أنه يوم 23، لا يفهمون أنه كل سنة يوم 23.
حفظكم الله. But do like this year the dates have somewhat aligned, but it's not always like this. So the dates have aligned in the sense that the 10th of the Hijjah is on the 20th of July, and then the 11th of the Hijjah is on the 21st, etc. So don't understand that every year that this is the time of Eid and this is the time of the slaughtering. Rather, it changes every year. So be mindful of this.
والسؤال الثاني
لعلكم أجبتم عن هذا. The second question, Abdul Hakim, I think we've answered it now.
Yeah,
ما هو؟
The second question was the first one was the Eid and the 3 days. You just answered it as well. I think the 3 days.
العيد نعم، العيد 3 أيام بعد، يعني يوم العيد و3 أيام فوقه، يعني 4 أيام.
حفظكم الله شيخنا. So the 3 days are on top of the day of Eid. So the day of Eid is the 20th, and then we have the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 3 days preceding. Sorry, 3 days following.
قد يقول قائل ما الدليل على أنها 4 أيام وليست فقط يوم العاشر.
But someone may say, what's the evidence and proof that it's these days and it isn't just the 10th?
معلوم أنه لا ينهى عن صيام يوم من الأيام إلا يوم العيد. يوم العيد هو الذي نهي عن صيامه. فقد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أيام التشريق أيام أكل وشرب وذكر لله. فما دام أن أيام أكل وشرب يعني ينهى عن صيامها، وبالتالي هي أيام عيد. وأيضا لما أذن بالذبح الذي يكون يوم العيد أذن به في ال3 أيام التي تلي العيد، دل هذا كدليل آخر أنها من أيام العيد.
شيخنا حفظكم الله، ممكن تعيدوا الدلالة الثانية؟
نعم، أن الذبح يكون يوم العاشر، يوم العيد. ذبح الأضاحي والهدي للحجاج يكون يوم العاشر الذي هو يوم العيد، لكن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أذن أن يذبح في اليوم 11 و12 و13، فدل هذا على أنها أيضا هي من أيام العيد.
حفظكم الله وبارك فيكم شيخنا. So someone may ask, what's the evidence that the Eid extends these days? It extends for these 3 days after Eid. Yes, and the evidence for this is that it's well known that fasting is not impermissible except on the day of Eid. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he said, referring to the days of Tashreeq, and the days of Tashreeq are the 11th, 12th, and 13th, respectively, of the Hijjah. He said that these are days of eating and drinking and making remembrance of Allah, i.e., it is prohibited for an individual to fast on these days because they are days of eating and drinking. So this is the first evidence that these 3 days, they form a part of the days of Eid. The second is that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he made it permissible for the individual to slaughter the animal on the 10th of the Hijjah, and then following it, it's permissible to do it on the 11th, 12th, and 13th of the Hijjah. So this shows an indication and proves that the days of Eid extend to the 13th of the Hijjah. بارك الله فيكم شيخنا، هذا ممتاز جدا.
بارك الله. وبقي أسئلة؟
Are there any more questions, Abdul Hakim?
I think that will do because it's Maghrib here now. So
okay. طيب. إذن ننهي بالصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
So then in that case we'll stop because it's time for Maghrib, and we stop with sending peace and salutations upon the Prophet Muhammad, and then we give you the greetings of salutations and peace upon all of you. جزاكم الله خير وبارك فيكم شيخنا. ما شاء الله محاضرة ما شاء الله ممتاز جدا.
الله يوفقنا وإياكم. بارك الله فيكم.
وفيكم بارك الله شيخنا، ولا تنسانا من صالح دعواتكم في هذه الأيام.
أبشروا وأنتم كذلك، الله يحفظكم. عبد الحكيم جزاك الله خير.
جزاك الله خير everybody. Thank you Tom.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you next week inshallah.
إن شاء الله.
Okay, السلام عليكم.
عليكم
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.